So, Mia and I met up with my friend Marta at the International Peruvian Festival here in Queens. Folks were dressed in traditional Peruvian clothes, and there was plenty of delicious Peruvian food. Lots of folks speaking Spanish and waving Peruvian flags, but there were also people waving American flags too. And they were dressed in jeans and t-shirts, and there were pretzels, hot dogs, and other food typically considered American. Mia was a bit confused. So I had to explain that the people at the festival identify as both Peruvian and American. Today, we're going to explore the differences between ethnicity and nationality, migration's impact on identity, and issues with identity and ethnicity in the 21st century. But what do we mean by ethnicity? Throughout this course, we've discussed our increasingly globalized world, and part of globalization involves migration. Take Marta's dad, for example. He was born in Peru and immigrated to the United States to attend college. After graduating, he married Marta's mother, became a citizen, and started a family. Marta's dad proudly identifies as a Peruvian American. And even though she was born here in New York, Marta considers herself Peruvian American too. But there are so many other people from places all over the world living in the US. It's the textbook definition of a multi-nation state. In multi-nation states, people often identify themselves by their ethnicity and nationality. But what is the difference between those two? Take a moment to try to explain those differences. Ethnicity is when a group of people share a common cultural background, including language, traditions, religion, and ancestry. Nationality refers to the connections between individuals and countries. It shows that you live in a country and generally means you are a citizen of that country. What would Marta say her ethnicity is? What about her nationality? Marta is ethnically Peruvian, but her nationality is American. Peruvian American. And because Marta and her father are proud Peruvian Americans, they love opportunities to celebrate that identity, like the annual Peruvian Festival. But why are ethnicity and nationality important? Thinking about our ethnicity allows us to remain connected to our past and where our families came from. It can provide connections and community with people who share a common heritage. A shared nationality allows us to create community with people from different ethnic backgrounds. While we may have diverse cultural backgrounds, national identity allows us to bond over the values and beliefs that come with being residents of the same country. Plus, it makes it a little easier for the people of diverse countries to peacefully coexist. Marta and her father embrace unique aspects of both their Peruvian heritage and American nationality. Both speak English and Spanish fluently. They definitely can tell you how their favorite sports teams, the New York Mets and Peruvian soccer teams, have broken their hearts. Again. And they love traditional American dishes like hamburgers and hot dogs, as well as Peruvian staples like ceviche. This blending of ethnic and national identities occurs through a process I like to call the 3 A's: acculturation, adaptation, and assimilation. Migrating to a new country means interacting with new cultural elements. Acculturation happens when different cultures meet and mix. It's kind of like dipping your toes into a new culture. When he first immigrated, Marta's dad tried new foods like bagels and pizza. And when he was dating Marta's mom, he made her ceviche. She had never had anything like it before. Why are these examples of acculturation? For Marta's dad, he got to experience different elements of a new culture when he moved to New York. And he introduced Marta's mom to aspects of his culture. Adaptation occurs when we change our habits and lifestyles to meet our surroundings. Marta's father loves Inca Cola, a Peruvian soda, but it isn't always easy to find here, so sometimes he has to drink cream soda instead. Why is this necessary for people who've migrated? While globalization makes it easier to access different products and ingredients from all over the world, people aren't able to get their hands on everything from their home country. Acculturation and adaptation allow us to appreciate different cultures, enrich our experiences, and try new things. Can you think of any potential drawbacks? Navigating the culture of a new country can often be stressful, especially if you're trying to do it on your own. This is why those cultural enclaves we discussed earlier have such pull for migrants. How can these communities help people navigate the differences in ethnicity and nationality? These neighborhoods provide a connection to elements of people's ethnic heritage while also helping them adjust to their new country. After a while, though, people begin to culturally assimilate. This occurs when a person or group from one culture comes to adopt the practices, values, and identity of another culture. After living in the US for many years, Marta's father usually speaks English. And the family still eats traditional Peruvian food, but usually only on holidays or special occasions. And while this process has helped Marta's father feel more American, what are some of the downsides of assimilation? For some individuals and families, this can lead to a loss of cultural identity, a pressure to conform, and conflict between different generations. When Marta's grandmother comes to visit from Peru, she makes traditional meals for dinner. And while Marta loves her grandma's cooking, sometimes she just wants pizza for dinner. Marta and her father want to remain connected to their Peruvian roots while embracing being an American. That's part of the reason they love events like the Peruvian Festival. But with more globalization and migration in the 21st century, there are some issues that we need to be aware of. How might all of this acculturation, adaptation, and assimilation impact cultural identity? Unfortunately, this process can lead to cultural traditions, customs, and ways of life slowly disappearing and being replaced by those of another cultures, a process called cultural erosion. This means that traditional clothing, music, and art often disappear. And if this goes on unchecked, it can lead to entire cultures disappearing. Why are events like the Peruvian Festival important tools in preventing cultural erosion? Events like these help preserve and celebrate cultural traditions, allowing people to stay connected to their heritage and pass it on to future generations. We also need to avoid cultural appropriation, which happens when someone adopts elements of another culture, often without understanding or respecting their significance. Sometimes this is done intentionally. Imagine a non-Peruvian person opened up a restaurant that advertised authentic Peruvian ceviche without employing or crediting the Peruvian community. And imagine that restaurant became really successful. People might feel offended or left out. What can consumers do to avoid this? We can start by researching where these items come from and how they're traditionally made. And we can also talk to people from that culture, visit cultural festivals or markets, and buy directly from artists or businesses that are part of the culture. This helps ensure we're getting something real and respectful of the culture's traditions. But cultural appropriation can be accidental too. Take these bright, vibrant ponchos, a traditional clothing item in Peruvian culture. They often indicated social status and were used in burial ceremonies. It might be tempting to wear one just because they look great, but wearing one without understanding its significance or being part of the community can come across as disrespectful, even if it wasn't meant to be. So, how can we appreciate diverse cultures without appropriating them? First, it's important to talk with and listen to members of the cultural group before adopting elements of their culture as our own. And we should definitely reflect on our intentions. Adopting elements of other cultures just because they're cool or interesting can be really offensive. Globalization in the 21st century means that we get to interact with a lot of diverse cultures and ethnicities, allowing us to really expand our horizons. But we need to make sure that we're preserving elements of all of these diverse cultures and that we experience them respectfully and avoid cultural appropriation. I figured that stopping by Ellis Island would be a great way to wrap up this lesson. After all, millions of immigrants passed through here on their American journey. In countries with diverse populations, like the United States, people's identities are impacted by ethnicity and nationality. And as people from different ethnic backgrounds migrate, they bring with them cultural elements associated with that background, leading to these different cultures influencing and impacting each other. Interacting with people with different ethnicities allows us to expand our horizons and gain a deeper appreciation of diverse cultures. But as citizens of an increasingly globalized world, we need to actively work to prevent cultural erosion and appropriation. The next time we see each other, we're going to take a look at family and gender roles. Until then, remember to keep exploring. See you next time. Hey.